Welcome to another edition of TSSA Safety Matters. I'm your host, Greg Kerr from Stakeholder Relations, and today we're with Sandra Cook, TSSA's new industry ombudsman, a special role that has been developed. So thanks for being with us today, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Greg. Glad to be here.
Excellent. So maybe first off, Sandra, maybe you could explain why was the ombudsman role created in the first place?
Well, first of all, we launched the internal ombudsman last July, and there always was the intention to have that as a pilot, and then to launch the external ombudsman. HRAI, which is the Association of Fuels Contractors, Heating and Refrigeration, have been asking for an ombudsman for some time. Right? So we wanted to launch it internally. We wanted to do a pilot to see how it take up. Of course, get myself educated as well. And then our intention was to launch the external one before at the start of this fiscal year.
So what's the feedback been like for the internal staff, TSSA staff ombudsman? What's that experience been like? It's
been very good. I did a 6-month summer report, and at that time we had about 5% take up of the population, right, which is normal industry standards for ombudsmen to have about population about 5% use, and we had about 50-50 issues. Some were stressful issues or issues of conflict, and about 50% were suggested process improvements. So we had the normal take up, and I was quite pleased to see that we had both suggested improvements and of course conflict or stress type issues.
And maybe that's an indication of what we can expect from industry, possibly in terms of like a balance between these are my issues and these are ideas for making things better, right?
I hope so. I mean, that would be ideal, because I think that's a way that TSSA can receive input on how we can improve. But I think probably initially will be more stressful conflict or issues with that. Issue driven, right? Sorry, I thought my expectation for the beginning. I mean, today the office has been open 4 days, right? And we've had 10 contacts. So people are finding out. Let's put it that way. So it's good.
Sure. So whose side is the ombudsman really on?
The ombudsman's not on anyone's side. This type of ombudsman, which is called an organizational ombudsman, and it's really based on an international association, their code of ethics and their standards of practice. But the idea is that the ombudsman is supposed to help the visitor, the person who approaches the office, to explore options for how they can deal with the situation. So the ombudsman we don't arbitrate, we don't adjudicate, we don't take sides, but we help people. And certainly with being the industry ombudsman, I think one of the things that industry has issues with is how to navigate TSSA. They have an issue. Where do they go? Where can they go? Right? And also, how can they articulate their issues so maybe they can be received in the most positive manner to get the most positive result for them.
So, and one of those criteria is an element of neutrality. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Is that a tough thing to maintain? I know you also got your feet wet with the employee ombudsman, but how do you maintain that neutrality?
I think one of the most important things that you do, and this is some of the things that I've learned in training, is that you first make it very clear to the person what your role is. So their expectation isn't that you're going to present or work their case, i.e. Their expectation is going to be that you're going to help them, facilitate them. You may and many times act as what they call shell diplomacy, which means that, say you have an issue, but you don't want to take it forward, you're not comfortable. I can take it forward on your behalf to the person that you want me to take it to, saying the things that you want me to say, right? So I need your explicit permission for whatever I do. But the idea is that you try to be very upfront at the beginning so they don't have an expectation that you're going to actually resolve the issue for them, and that you don't have a vested interest in any particular outcome.
So what can the ombudsman do?
The ombudsman, I mean, there's many things. I mean, there's many options that you have available to you. Well, some of the typical options include helping you navigate around TSSA, right?
As you mentioned.
right? One of the other options that you have is it's role playing, i.e., you want to present a position either verbally or in writing, and I can do coaching, role playing. I can look at it and say, you may want to position this way, because a lot of times when people are, especially in issues of stress, they're emotional, right? And one of the best ways not to get your issue resolved is be over emotional, and then everyone gets their backs up. So I thought one of the things I can do is coaching and role playing to help people present their situations in the best positive light.
Can you give me an example of role playing, like how that would work out?
Well, say you have an issue with your supervisor, and you want to bring it up. You may want to sit down with me and say, these are the issues that I have. This is how I'm going to present it. And then I can come back and say, well, you may get these type of questions back, right? So we can go back and forth. Or some people, when they write things out, it's very easy for me because I'm not involved in a particular issue. I can see emotion, or I can see that, this still sounds very emotional. You may want to rephrase this. You may want to put it this way, right? Or if this is really your point, you're not getting it across, right? And one of the key things that you try to do as an ombudsman is get to what the actual interests are. Like, what's really driving this, right? Are you really upset at this person because they gave you an order, or is it the way they gave you an order? Right, so so it's really trying to understand that, and the show of diplomacy is another option, and other options are, there are certain places, like a lot of our industry don't even know they can appeal. True. Right, and so they don't even know what the process is, how it would work.
That formal appeal process.
Formal appeal process, right? So, I've been at TSSA a long time, so I do understand the processes that are available, so I can help them navigate that way as well.
Well, it's interesting because you're acting as a mediator of sorts, but you're also doing a bit of analysis too, all to the ultimate end of assisting the person who's in front of you, right? Because sometimes it could be, I'm hot under the collar, but that's not the real issue behind what the concern is.
For sure, and that's one of the key things that you get trained on when you're doing the training for the ombudsman, is that trying to understand what really is driving it, and helping them understand what's driving their issue as well.
Because you did get certification through a body in the United States.
I'm not certified yet. I've passed the exam. I've taken the required courses. The thing that's holding me up is I don't have the practicing hours. So I need a year worth of practicing hours. So I don't have that yet. I expect I will probably have that early in 2015.
And they gave you the whole gambit dealing with theory all the way to practicum in terms of how to deal with these things, even on an international scale, right?
Basically, it doesn't vary from nationality to nationality, but yes, we got all the basic theory and then did a lot of role playing in the courses as well. So it was very useful for me to understand what's the boundaries of what I can do, and because you always have to try not to get emotionally vested in the situation yourself, right?
To that end, in terms of boundaries, is there anything that you can't do?
Well, I can't give legal advice, right? I can't. I'm not a place where you can officially lodge a complaint. I'm an informal resource, so I will not take formal complaints about TSSA. I help people if they want to lodge a formal complaint where it can go, and I don't make management decisions. I can't make statutory decisions. So those are the type of limitations I have. I'm not a resolver. I'm a facilitator.
Now, one of the key components, I think, has to deal with confidentiality.
Yep.
And how do you assure that?
Well, one of the big things is that, of course, we're working a situation. You have to keep some notes because you can't remember everything in your head. But after you're finished with that particular case, you have to destroy the notes, right? I'm also bound by confidentiality. If someone comes to me, I can only do whatever with their explicit permission. And the only proviso to that is that I think they would physically harm themselves or somebody else.
Or it's an illegal activity of some sort.
If it's a legal activity, I would probably try to coach the person to take it to the right place, right? So, I mean, I'm bound as a citizen and an employee, but I would really try strongly to have them take it to the appropriate place. I mean, they're coming to me because they would be concerned about that, right? So I think that's how I would help them, right?
Now, what can someone expect when they contact you?
They can expect me to respond to them, right? Likely, either speaking to them on the phone, going over their options of what they can do, or meeting in person, right? Whichever they feel more comfortable with. And then one of the big things about it is that I need to follow up. Like once they've decided to take a situation forward in a certain way, or they expect me to take it forward on their behalf with their permission, I need to follow up with them, right? So you can expect a beginning, middle, and basically an end, right? So that's the expectation they have.
Would there be a good time for them to contact you?
Typically what you want is, like, you don't really want to contact the Ombudsman when you've already launched a formal appeal, unless you believe the appeal process is being abused or something, right? So I would always suggest contacting the Ombudsman early in a situation, because then we can explore all of your options. If you've already formally launched an appeal and it's going through that process, at that point it's very difficult for me to come in and to help, unless again you feel that the process is being not executed properly, right? So I would always suggest to come in the beginning. But the Ombudsman is a totally voluntary situation. So the other thing that we have to be careful at TSSA is that we don't refer people to the Ombudsman. They have to decide to come on their own.
On their own?
Right? It's totally voluntary. You can't compel someone to come to this office. It has to be something where they feel very comfortable and free to discuss anything.
Sure. Now, you have had, you mentioned the Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigeration Institute earlier before. You've been meeting with some industry members. What's the response been like?
The response by HRAI was very positive, because certainly they're the group that's been asking for it for some time. So the response was quite positive. So I had a number of questions, and I mean, they've already written me up in their magazine. So I think they're going to do quite a bit to promote it, because they've been asking for it. So the expectation there was it was going to be very positive. And so I would expect, I've had some emails from other industry members, typically in the fuels area, because that's my background, saying that they're happy that the role was created. So I've had a few emails to that extent since Thursday when it was launched.
Yeah, and you'll be reaching out to more, because it's not just fuels, it's anything related to TSSA.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be I'm scheduled to be at all of the next upcoming advisory councils to go over what the Ombudsman is, how you can contact the Ombudsman, what they can do for you, how they can facilitate things. So we're going to be sending it out to all of the advisory. I will be doing a personal presentation at all the advisory councils.
That's excellent, Sandra. Congratulations on the evolution of your role and its critical importance in safety and addressing industry matters.
Thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to spread the understanding of the Ombudsman role. Thanks.
Excellent. Stay tuned for more TSSA safety matters, and visit the Ombudsman website at ombudsman.tssa.org.